Okay, so I'm just hitting record, audio only. I don't really feel like setting up cameras or do anything like that. I'm just going to see how I do with this because I have a rant in me that I want to get out because I've just been screaming at myself in my head nonstop pretty much since yesterday. So, as most people are aware of, if you've ever seen me on screen, on camera, you probably noticed the blue Buffalo Bills hat that I usually wear. Yes, I am a fan of the Buffalo Bills. And I think anybody that follows the NFL at least probably knows where this is going. On Sunday, we had a very critical divisional playoff game against the Kansas City Chiefs, hosted at home in Buffalo. And it ended the same way that all of our other postseason encounters with the Chiefs ended, with a heartbreaking loss. And after said loss, there's been a lot of discussion on Twitter and other places too about who's to blame, pointing the fingers, basically. It always comes down to pointing the fingers. And I've heard a lot of really ridiculous things said. I'll probably talk about some of that at least. But I just want to get my thoughts out on what I witnessed and, more importantly, where I think the team should go from here, because there is a lot that gets kicked out about all of this. So let me just start with what I witnessed. What I witnessed was a microcosm of the Bills' 2023 season. It was, at moments, we had an offense that was awesome. I think we had a good game plan. I think Joe Brady had a really good game plan going into this game. And the game plan was basically protect our defense because we had a ton of injuries. We were running out. It's amazing, and we'll get to the Sean McDermott component to this later, but it's actually amazing that this team got as far as it did with the MASH unit that Sean McDermott has been fielding on defense for at least half the season. Like, a lot of these dudes that we've been putting out on the field are guys that you would probably, in any other scenario, only see during a Week 4 preseason game, back when Week 4 preseason games existed. And if you ever watched a Week 4 preseason game, you understand what I'm talking about. So the fact that he was able to get great production out of a lot of these dudes is amazing. I mean, just talking about the Steelers game, we had a guy who was literally packing up his RV with his family, getting ready to go to Key West in Florida for a family vacation, hadn't played in a while. And because of all of the injuries we have at linebacker, we called that dude up and said, hey, we need somebody that knows this system to play a playoff game for us against the Steelers. Get to Buffalo. And he did. He came to Buffalo, ice cold, right off the couch, getting ready to go to Florida with his family, and immediately became the team's leading tackler against the Steelers. Now, granted, it was a Mason Rudolph-led Steeler, so I know that's not necessarily the most intimidating thing in the world, but it's still pretty impressive. It's a Mike Tomlin team in the postseason, which hasn't really been great lately, but I still think Tomlin is a good coach. But the greater point is we've got all sorts of dudes like that have been stepping up for guys like Tre'Davious White, who's been out with an Achilles injury early in the season. Guys like Matt Milano, who I can't even remember if he even played this season. Maybe he did and got injured early on. I can't recall. But he hasn't played in a long, long time. And he is, besides Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer, who our defense was built around, Milano is the linchpin of the defense because he is the quarterback of the defense. So, and that's what A.J. Klein, the dude who was about to go to Florida, that's what he did. They gave him the comms. When he came, there was a guy, I don't know if this speaks ill of any of the other linebackers in our room, but a lot of those guys were injured too. We didn't have anybody else who we trusted with the comms on our defense more than a guy that was about to go to Florida with his family, a couple of days before that game occurred. Crazy. But he was familiar with McDermott's system. He played with them, played under him when he was the defensive coordinator in Carolina. So that at least makes some sense. Regardless, we've been getting a lot of great production out of all sorts of random-ass dudes on defense. So it was only a matter of time before we went up against a buzzsaw. And I saw it coming. Like, the Chiefs suck this year in the regular season. But when they make it to the postseason, they switch and they totally do a Luffy. They bite their forearm, they inflate it, they do a Gear 4 or a Gear 5 transformation. And they just turn it to a whole other thing. Actually, what I had said on Twitter is Josh Allen is like the Vegeta of quarterbacks, and I would say that Joe Burrow is probably, and I'm speaking purely in AFC terms here, Joe Burrow is like the Goku of quarterbacks, and Patrick Mahomes is like the Broly of quarterbacks. So if you ever watched Vegeta try to fight Broly, you know how that goes, and it kind of sucks in that sense because I do think that Josh Allen played an amazing game. But again, this game was a microcosm of our entire season. What we saw was a great game plan going in. We were limiting the exposure of our patchwork defense by running the ball. We ran it very effectively at first. That kept Patrick Mahomes on the bench. Only way you're going to beat that guy is keeping him on the bench. So we did a good job in that, but in those times when he did get on the field, he did expose our defense. He was able to make those shots, get those points. And there's not much you could do about that. I mean, if you're the best defense in the league with all your starters, there still isn't going to be much you could do about that in the postseason against him. Regular season, sure. In the postseason, not much you can do. They did the best they could at that moment. And our offense did a really good job running the ball, getting a couple of running scores by Josh Allen, and I think he had a really awesome pass to Khalil Shakir. Crazy play. They did enough there, but our offense this offseason was pockmarked by inconsistencies in our passing game, and this is what got the old offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey fired. When the Chiefs came out after the half and realized the best way to adjust to our run-heavy game plan was to basically stack the box and attack the living hell out of the offensive line. Don't worry about the passing game. Just stop their run game and force Josh Allen to rely on his receivers. That's when it became apparent that Joe Brady's effectiveness at taking over the offense from Ken Dorsey was in his decision to rely heavily on the running game, masking the ineffectiveness of our receiver core. Once Joe Brady became the offensive coordinator, James Cook came to life, and Latavius Murray and Ty Johnson too. Ty Johnson, and even in this game, he had some good plays. But all of that was in service, and give him credit, by the way. Give him credit for getting the running game going, because it was something that we hadn't been great at for a while. But all of that was in service of keeping Josh Allen from having to rely on his receivers making plays, because those motherfuckers weren't making plays. They were devoted to not making plays, and that was the downside of our offense in that game. Everyone's talking about, Tyler Bass missed that field goal, wide right, whatever. There are worse wide rights in Bills history than that one. And they're talking about, Josh Allen threw that pass to Khalil Shakir in the end zone, but he could have thrown it underneath to Diggs and made it third and manageable and picked up a first and burned off some time, blah, 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 all that shit. Yes, that's probably true. I will never condemn Josh Allen for being aggressive and taking a shot in the end zone against the Chiefs in the postseason when the shot is there to be had. And the shot was there to be had. It was there. Khalil was wide open. Allen had a clear target on him, and he threw a pass that probably would have been accurate. It would have gone for a touchdown had Deion Dawkins not been blocked into Josh Allen by the defender. Pushed totally into him, bumped him, threw his pass off. So because of that, there is an opportunity to look at Diggs underneath going, why didn't you throw it to him? Well, I think the biggest and most critical takeaway on the offense from this game is going to be a video I've already seen about 10 million times on Twitter. It is the 8 to 9 second loop in slow motion of Stephon Diggs running down the field, Josh Allen heaving an incredible 50, maybe even 60-yard bomb. Incredible bomb down the field. And it hits Stephon Diggs in stride perfectly on his chest. Perfectly. Perfect pass. And he just totally flops on it. Like he misses it. Doesn't even touch the ball with his hands. It just bounces right off of his chest and falls helplessly to the ground. And I look at that play, and I mean before that there were a couple of drops from Trent Sherfield, but I mean come on, it's Trent Sherfield. No one has any expectation that Trent Sherfield is going to be the guy that best Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes. I mean it's a nice story whenever it happens, and I guess maybe Gabe Davis was kind of that guy before 13 seconds occurred, but no one had that expectation of Trent Sherfield. It's kind of unfair to ask Josh Allen to rely on someone like Trent Sherfield to be that guy. But he had a couple of bad drops. You would expect that kind of. You don't expect that from Stephon Diggs. You think Stephon Diggs is the guy. He's the guy you go to in the postseason. Game on the line, a minute left. You're down by I guess 3 or yeah, you're down by 3. Touchdown puts you up 4, gives the ball back to Kansas City, ideally with about a minute or so left. I mean, that's plenty of time. 13 seconds tells you that's plenty of time for them to do something. But it gives you more, at least, breathing room. They have to score a touchdown. They can't rely on a field goal. 13 seconds was a field goal. It gives you more breathing room to work with there for your defense. But you trust Stephon Diggs to be that guy. And all season long, like he started the season strong, but halfway through, he just completely fell off a cliff. No idea why. And you would think that, okay, he fell off at the end of the regular season. Postseason, he's going to show up. He's going to do what Mahomes does. He's going to do what Kelsey does. And that's show up in the postseason because that's what he's all about. Never forget when he caught that pass from Case Keenum for the Vikings into the game. He runs to the end zone and just stands there and stares like he's disappointed in you. He was staring in the end zone like he was disappointed in you for ever thinking he couldn't be the one to do that. And it's like, motherfucker, I don't even know who you are. Why are you looking at me like I was doubting you? Who are you? I found out who he was after the fact, but it's just funny that he had that kind of, it was his version, I guess, of the Richard Sherman, you put a sorry retriever like Crabtree on me, that's what you're going to get, So you expect that from Diggs, like, oh, this is his bread and butter. This is where he's going to shine. But nope, he completely whiffed. And to me, that is this season's offense in a microcosm. Both sides could never get the gears running at the same time. The passing game had its moments when the running game was nothing, and then the passing game started to stall, and as a result, we ended up 6-6. That's when Ken Dorsey got shown his walking papers. Joe Brady took over. He did something to get the running game going. I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, the running game started to work, and that papered over the ineffectiveness of the passing game. And that was just good enough to get us some wins against a few lousy teams, but a couple good ones too, and get us into the postseason. Not good enough to beat Patrick Mahomes, or really that Chiefs defense, really. Steve Spagnuolo. So that's what I saw there on offense. It was just a continuation of an offense that I never had trust in this season for some reason. I don't know what happened. Maybe the move away from Brian Dable was too great to overcome. When you don't have superstars at wide receiver. Everybody said going into the 2023 season that our biggest need was a wide receiver complement to Stephon Diggs, and we never got one. And I feel like that shows up in situations like this. I think Sean McDermott is good enough to coach a team to these moments, but without true rock star talent, you can't get past these moments. And the Chiefs had rock star talent, like on top of the fact that our defense was a mash unit. Like they took advantage of a couple things. One thing they took advantage of. Yes, we had a lot of injuries. That's not a catch-all defense for the performance of the defense, though. It explains some things, but that defense still got a couple of good stops towards the end of the game. Like they put us into a position. They had a 3-and-out that was kind of reversed after a pass interference call on Dorian Williams. And after that, they had another 3-and-out though. They recovered and got a 3-and-out immediately after that. So the defense did its job for the most part towards the end, which is important because it put us into a situation where we could have taken the clock down to 10 seconds and theoretically scored a touchdown and won. That's all you can hope for going up against a team like Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes Chiefs. But despite that, though, there were. Let me see if I can find this video. People are buzzing me. Okay, so this was what Dan Orlovsky posted earlier when he was talking about the Chiefs. He was talking about the Chiefs' offensive game plan versus the Bills' defense, and this is something that has nothing to do with player injuries. Well, kind of. This has more to do with the defensive philosophy of Sean McDermott, who is the defensive play caller this year, and for the most part, he's done a good job. But again, it's these moments that are critical. So I'm gonna first let Orlovsky talk about it, and I'm gonna have somebody else explain why it's foolish. Actually, I don't even know if you can hear that. I might have to drop this. I forget that I'm not doing my usual Steam setup. So I'll probably
Patrick Mahomes
drop this audio in.
I've never seen a player better than Patrick Mahomes. We can debate all we want about Josh Allen. At maximum, we're fighting over whether or not he's the second best player because Patrick Mahomes is the best.
Patrick Mahomes is special. And to go and do on the road what he did, I think the big overall take for Kansas City, Patrick, in their offense, number one, it was clean, the game.
Yeah.
They've talked about all year, 2 penalties, 1 drop. Number two, I thought it was Matt Nagy and Andy Reid's best game when it comes to the way that their offense planned and then executed, the way that they used the tight ends and the formations and the shifts out of them to run at Taron Johnson, the nickel for Buffalo. We've talked about that many times, was fantastic. They get into 13 personnel, 1 back, 3 tight ends, okay? They set that bunch initially. Then they shift out of that bunch. Now, when they get to that bunch, number 7, Taron Johnson, he's a great player, but he's 200 pounds. So they get him
Yes,
to
Taron Johnson has been awesome all season.
And then they run at him. Why? Because they pin the outside, and then we got big people blocking little people. I got tight end on a corner, and I got a right tackle on a 200-pound nickel back. Multiple times they got into that very specific group and formation. There it is again. Now we get ball left hash, we motion. We got 4 strong, right? Now Johnson lined up at the bottom of the screen towards the passing strength. Now again, I got big people on little people. This is Creed Humphrey, an all-pro center, blocking the nickel back. A huge run for CEH for Kansas City's offense. This is exactly what Matt Nagy and Andy Reid tried to do. There's that bunch formation again. They shift out of it. 3 tight ends. Everybody at home should know what we're going to get right now. Johnson at the bottom of the screen. Pin. There's that block. Pull. What do we got? Big people blocking little people for huge runs. That's really the story of the game. We said it in the beginning of the show. If either quarterback won this football game, we were going to praise the quarterback because it matters, but then also the way that they were able to run the football. Not only, hey, they ran the ball, the way that they did it. I thought it was really good by Matt Nagy and Andy Reid, getting those tight ends, setting the formation to get Taron Johnson to line up at a certain spot, right? You guys know this. Shift out of it, leave him there, and then multiple times run that way.
I mean, let's be...
So yeah, that's the reason why the Chiefs were able to, and Isaiah Pacheco is a great running back, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire popped off a little too. They ran at us, and they were very effective at it. Yeah, you could. There's a lot of smoke being blown up Mahomes' ass right now about, oh, he's the greatest. He went to 6 AFC championship titles back to back to back to back. Yeah, sure, fine, but this game, the performance for the offense for the Chiefs was barely on him, much in the same way that it was barely on Allen, because a lot of our offense was on Allen in the sense that he made up for a lot of the running stats himself as well. But this wasn't an Allen through the air kind of game. This was Allen on the ground and then James Cook. But for the Chiefs, it was also Isaiah Pacheco really taking over the game, and the reason why at the end of the game they were able to seal it is our defense just couldn't get that stop against Pacheco when he ran and got the first down he needed to give Mahomes the ability to kneel it out. So that's a huge issue with respects to our defense being schemed to stop the Chiefs from being able to exploit Taron Johnson. Now, Sean McDermott likes to run that kind of a defense. He likes to rely heavily on nickel D, which is why Taron Johnson had a great year. He's a great player. We were able to use it effectively against other teams, but when somebody figures you out, you have to be able to adjust. When somebody figures you out, you have to be able to adjust. Now, this is an interview that I believe James Light did with Nick Saban, and Nick Saban is going to explain this exact problem.
All the time. They want to play nickel all the time. They want to play nickel against regular, because people get in regular and they try to make nickel formations. So they just say, well, we just play nickel all the time. Well, look, we played Notre Dame this year, and they played 3 tight ends, and people were still playing nickel, and they got 3 tight ends in the game. I mean, they were getting the line kicked out their ass now, because there's just no way that you could hold up against all them big guys. Now, when we played them, I coached the Cleveland Browns when Irv Cross, Bavaro, and all these tight ends that the New York Giants had when Parcells was there. And I was coaching with Belichick, and we used to practice against them, and they used to get 3 big guys, 270, 270, 280, in a 3-man wing. And Frank Menenfield would be out there run support. And Bill said, this is not going to work. And I said, tell me about it. So we match personnel in the NFL. So if they got in 3 tight ends, we had 3 DBs on the field. We put an extra linebacker in the game, and we had a whole package of what we did. We called it Hippo. So we played Hippo against Notre Dame, and their 3 tight ends, they didn't make nothing because we had big guys against big guys. Now, I still think we could have played regular people against those big, and we still practice regular all the time because I fear playing against somebody who can run the ball, may get and put a couple 3 tight ends in the game, and you don't have a regular package or a big people package that you can play. I've always, you got to be able to match personnel. You can't say, I'm going to be simple and we're going to play nickel against everything. That's just me.
And that's what I think happened here. And I guess this kind of speaks to, and then I guess the last component. So that's offense, that's defense, and I guess special teams has always sucked all year. But there was actually there is like a special element to the special teams performance in this particular game, and that is why in the ever-loving fuck did Sean McDermott keep Sam Martin on the roster? We signed Matt Hack, all right, and he's not the best, but his leg isn't a fucking braised ham hock, which Sam Martin's is after pulling his hamstring chasing down a Steelers defender from a block punt last week. We know he didn't have enough time. I guess they felt comfortable, but why even risk it, dude? This is a divisional game against the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, the one dude who you have been completely unable to defeat in the postseason, no matter how good you've played. The last motherfucker on earth you want to give short fields to is Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. I don't care what else you have going on. Do not give Patrick Mahomes short fields in the postseason. They should have told Sam Martin, look, I'm sorry. It's a bad break. I get it. It sucks. We gotta release you so we can have space on the roster to sign Matt Hack up. We're not gonna keep 2 punters on. All right, we're not gonna keep 2 punters and be forced to release a defender, which we can't afford to release at all. And we're not gonna release a wide receiver because we're already down from Gabe Davis, and after him, who fucking knows who's gonna be capable of contributing on any given week. I mean, hell, during the Miami game, it was I can't even remember these motherfuckers' names. There were who was it? Who was it that had a big game against Miami? I really can't remember. It wasn't Andy Isabella. It was somebody else. the name will come to me at some point and I'll remember, but there's just all sorts of dudes like Sherfield or Khalil Shakir, who has actually been pretty reliable whenever he does get a chance to show up in a game. So I'm a big Khalil Shakir fan now. And then some other random dude whose name I can't remember. Shorter? Is it Shorter? I don't know. Regardless, you can never tell which one of those dudes you're going to have to rely on at any given moment. So we're not cutting a wide receiver, definitely not cutting a lineman, offensive lineman. Like it's going to be you, Sam Martin. If we have to bring Matt Hack on, you're the one that's going to get cut. And it would suck for Sam Martin if he gets cut because of the hamstring. And then Matt Hack goes on to, punt the best he's ever punted in his life and help the Bills, push past the Chiefs. Yeah, that would be a bummer for Sam Martin, I guess. But who cares about that? We got to get past the Chiefs. We can't give Patrick Mahomes a short field. And maybe if we had signed Matt Hack and we had a couple of those punts pin him back deep, then maybe we take one of their touchdowns off the board. Maybe one of those touchdowns becomes a field goal and we're looking at a different score by the end of regulation. Who knows? All I know is you're not going to have the possibility to get to that point if you give Patrick Mahomes a short field. I don't know why they thought this dude was going to be capable of punting after suffering a hamstring injury on a short week. It was a short week, too, because the Steelers game had to be played on Monday because of the snowstorm. So it's not even like the dude had a full week to quote-unquote recover, So it was just a dumb decision in that part. Special teams in that regard really, really fucked us. So, yeah, it was a total team loss. There was the offense, there was the defense, and there was the special teams component to it, too. Which is crazy because it's not like we got boat raced. We didn't get boat raced by this team. Like, we had it in our grasp to be able to walk off with a win. If there was just one pass that was caught from Sherfield or Diggs, or if Tyler Bass made that field goal, and our defense somehow, some way, the way they did in the series before, found a way to stifle Kansas City and brought it into overtime. The opportunity was there. This is not a team that got completely whooped by a Kansas City team that was, playing their A game. And I don't know if Kansas City was playing their A game. It seemed like they had some issues on their offense too once we started putting a little bit more pressure on Mahomes. We never got a sack, but we started to put a little bit more pressure on him, and we started forcing some incompletes towards the end there. Maybe too little too late, but it's not like they were boat racing us. They weren't. It was a back and forth game. There were lead changes the entire game. It was competitive. And a lot of the conversation around this game that you hear would betray that fact. You would listen to a lot of people talk about Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs and Trent Sherfield and all of this sort of stuff, Tyler Bass and the missed kick. You would hear people talk about this and think, oh, the Bills just got their asses beat. They must have got smoked in this game. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Like, it was actually a very close back and forth, anyone's game. Whoever possessed the ball last was going to win, it seemed. Like it was going to be that kind of a game. Didn't quite turn out that way, but it came closer than it had any right to be that kind of a game. So ultimately, what this leads to is conversations about Sean McDermott. There are conversations about Sean McDermott and there are conversations about Josh Allen. I'll separate those out real quick. Sean McDermott, the question, actually, let me talk about Josh Allen first. Josh Allen is a beast. In my mind, and yeah, I might be a little biased as a Bills fan, but I think I'm an honest one. Like, I'll tell you, and I'm someone who hated the drafting of him. I didn't like him coming out. I thought his rookie year was, a perfect encapsulation of why I didn't want to draft him. His rookie year was not great. There were some moments he flashed a little bit, but it wasn't great. So I thought, you see what we got. We got exactly what, blah, blah, blah. But he developed into who I think is the best quarterback in this league. And it's not like it's far and away. He's probably tied in that regard with Mahomes. He and Mahomes do a lot of the same things in a lot of the same high level. If I was ever going to give it to Allen over Mahomes, it's purely because he has the ability to charge like a buffalo through defenders on the ground with his own legs. Mahomes is a crafty runner. He's a crafty runner. He could use his legs and scramble and pick up the yards too, but it's much different than Mahomes or than Allen. So long as Allen has that component in his game, and he's not going to have it forever. He probably has about another 2 years or so before he has to start phasing that part of his game out. But so long as he has it in his game, I think he's as good as Mahomes ever will be. And it shows in a lot of how these games play out. Like if Josh Allen wasn't as good as he is as an all-around football player, both passing and rushing, they do get boat raced in this game. The ineffect, and in a lot of games, we wouldn't even be in this game. Actually, we probably wouldn't have made the playoffs, to be honest. The ineffectiveness of our wide receivers was largely papered over by our running game, by the emergence of John Cook after Joe Brady made those adjustments, yes, but also because Josh Allen just put the team on his back so many times and charged his ass into the end zone himself. So, yeah, he's that kind of a player, and he had that kind of a game, honestly. He went Super Saiyan pretty early on, and he had incredible runs, and he had incredible passes. One of which to Khalil Shakir in the end zone, which was an amazing pass that only 2 other quarterbacks in this league has the ability to make, Mahomes being one of them. And then he had a dimes down the field to Sherfield and Diggs that got dropped. You know, he can only throw them. He can't catch them too, right? And he had a great pass that was going to be a touchdown to Shakir if Deion Dawkins didn't get blocked into him. You know, if Deion Dawkins stood his ground a little bit more, maybe he does some sumo training in the offseason with some prominent yokozunas, learns how to hold his feet a little bit better, then that's probably a touchdown too. It was almost on the money. It was the trajectory in which it was off the mark is perfectly correlated with the amount that he was pushed as he was releasing. So he had a pretty amazing game himself too. Putting this on Allen is ridiculous. Like, there's only so much he can do. He can't play defense, right? Like, he can't make up for, Sean McDermott's over-reliance on Teron Johnson, being the nickel corner when there are 3 tight ends out there. He can't make up for, A.J. Klein. Again, a guy who was packing up his RV a week ago to take his family to the Florida Keys, subsequently being asked to guard Hall of Fame tight end Travis Kelce, as he's streaking down the field. You can't. I mean, AJ Klein wouldn't have done that in his prime. He couldn't have done that in his prime. Josh Allen can't do anything about that. There's only so much he could do, and for what he can do, he did it at the highest level. Yeah, and it took him this far. And somebody compared him. This is the most ridiculous shit in the world. I saw somebody, they had the audacity, the unmitigated gall to compare Josh Allen to Phillip Rivers, which, and I want to say this right off the top, I've always liked Phillip Rivers. I thought he was a cool dude. I thought he was a cool dude in the sense that he was a very prominent shit talker. I thought that was a funny trait for a quarterback. Usually it's the wide receivers or corners that are the prominent shit talkers. But I thought it was funny that it was coming from the quarterback. He was a wild man a bit too. He was a gunslinger for certain. I just liked watching him play. I had a lot of respect for him. And, when he ended out his season in Indianapolis, I was rooting for him. I wanted him to get that Super Bowl appearance, if not win at least. But, he just couldn't get it done. But people are talking about Josh Allen in those terms because they're seeing him right now and they're going, oh, he just can't get it done. He's Phillip Rivers. He just can't get it done. Let me tell you something. I sound like Fire Marshal Bill there for a second. Let me tell you something. I'm gonna compare some numbers here just so we could put this into context. Phillip Rivers he started throughout his career in 12 postseason games. Josh Allen has started in 10 postseason games. In those 12 postseason games, Phillip Rivers has attempted 401 passes, completed 238 of them, with 163 incompletions for a 59.4% completion percentage ratio. Josh Allen attempted 378 passes to Phillip Rivers 401, 244 completions to Rivers 238, and 134 incompletions to Phillip Rivers 163 for a 64.6 completion percentage to Phillip Rivers 59.4. For yardages, Phillip Rivers is on top by 200 yards. He has 2,965 yards in the postseason. Josh Allen has 2,723 yards in the postseason. For touchdowns to interceptions, Phillip Rivers has 16 touchdowns to 10 interceptions in the postseason. Josh Allen has 21 touchdowns passing. This is passing. We're strictly talking passing. He has 21 passing touchdowns to 4 interceptions in the postseason. If we want to put rushing in there too, Josh Allen has 5 rushing touchdowns. Phillip Rivers has 1. So total touchdowns is 17 for Phillip Rivers and 26 for Josh Allen. And again, 4 interceptions for Allen, 10 for Phillip Rivers. Josh Allen has been in the league for 6 years now. Phillip Rivers was in the league for 17 years. 17 years! It's taken Josh Allen 6 years to ostensibly blow past, and if we're talking about touchdowns, what puts points on the board, it's taken him 6 years to blow past Phillip Rivers' number from 17 years. 17 years it took Phillip Rivers to accomplish what it took Josh Allen 6 years to accomplish. Josh Allen is still in his 20s. I forget how old he is. He's like 26 or 27. Let me look that up. 27. Yeah, he'll be 28 in May. So he's got some years ahead of him still. But he's already done more than Phillip. At the very least, he's done as much as far as completion percentages, attempts, yards, etc. But if we're looking at points, putting touchdowns on the board, he's done a lot more than Phillip Rivers has in 17 years in the postseason. And look at this. This is relevant to what I was discussing earlier as far as Buffalo's offense and the inadequacies we've seen throughout the years, really, from the wide receiver core. 10 games. Josh Allen, 6 of his passes were batted away. Phillip Rivers had none. Kudos to him. That's actually a very, very, very important stat. Those batted passes kills drives. He's had 14 throwaways. Allen has had 14 throwaways. Phillip Rivers has had 7. Allen has had 1 spike. Phillip Rivers has had 0. I don't really quite know what that hints at. I guess maybe the Chargers were so routinely blown out in postseason games they never got to a point where they needed to rush to the line and spike the ball to try for a game-winning drive. I don't know, but Josh Allen has done that at least once. Now here's the juice. 10 postseason games in 6 years. Josh Allen has had 18 drops. Wide receivers have dropped the ball 18 times in 10 games through 6 years. Phillip Rivers, in 12 games through 17 years, he's had 7 drops. Now, we're not talking about like bad passes. They have that on here too. And really the bad pass thing just highlights the insane amount of times that Josh Allen must be throwing the ball in these games. But those drops that's a substantial difference in the amount of drops and the drop percentage, 5% for Allen versus 1.8% for Rivers. Like, they said it up and down the broadcast yesterday of the game that, these games, particularly against heavyweights like Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, the margins are almost non-existent. You can't have mistakes. You have to play mistake-free football. And if you've got receivers dropping the ball that many times in a 6-year time span, a 10-game time span, then it's not a surprise that, the team can't get past these critical hurdles. This was a winnable game. This was a perfectly winnable game, but you can't be dropping the ball the way they were dropping it yesterday. Bad throws. They have Josh Allen. Okay, so this one is also it's very critical of Josh Allen in this regard. Josh Allen has had 58 bad throws to Phillip Rivers 24. Again, the fact that he has that many more bad throws in 10 games over 6 years to Phillip Rivers 12 games over 17 years is shocking. It's shocking. And not necessarily shocking because, like, oh man, he's a shitty quarterback having that many bad throws. No, because we saw the completion percentages and all that. Like, it's shocking he's thrown the ball that many times. Like, Phillip Rivers has 401 attempts in 17 years. Josh Allen has almost the same amount of attempts, 378, in 6. Allen's arm is gonna fall off his shoulder, by the time he hits 30 if he keeps throwing like that. But yeah, like Josh Allen is playing at a routinely higher level than Phillip Rivers ever did in the postseason. He's just not getting the help. He's not getting the help from his receivers. If you look at like the pressure stats, it's I mean, Josh Allen has been blitzed 116 times through compared to Phillip Rivers 39 times. So, people are trying to take his fucking head off. It kind of puts the bad throws thing into perspective when you see 116 blitzes against him in 10 games over 6 years versus 39 blitzes against Phillip Rivers in 12 games over 17 years. He's been hurried 26 times over Rivers 11, hit 32 times over Rivers 12. He's been pressured 81 times over Rivers 46. And he scrambled 30 times over Rivers 2. So, yeah, he's playing under a lot more duress than Phillip Rivers ever did. And is still accomplishing, everything that Rivers accomplished and more in less than half the time. So, yeah, it's pretty Josh Allen is good. He is the best quarterback in the league, in tandem with Pat Mahomes and probably also Joe Burrow. Definitely Joe Burrow. So, any kind of discussion that you see of Josh Allen not being good enough, he's the second coming of Phillip Rivers, or all that sort of stuff is complete and pure bullshit. This team would be nowhere near the playoffs without Josh Allen, let alone getting a playoff win, let alone being inches away from topping their rival. And every team in the league has that one team that they just can't like get away from. I think I saw something, a stat about every time the Packers were knocked out of the playoffs, it's always been at the hands of the 49ers or something like that. Let me see if I could find that. But every team has for whatever reason, every team has that they just have that team that is a constant heel regardless, or a constant thorn regardless of how well they might be playing or how not good the other team may be playing. For the Patriots, that was the Giants. Lucky for them, they were out of the conference, so the only time they ever encountered them in the postseason was at the Super Bowl. Our team is in conference and we can't get past them. The Patriots were that team for the Colts for many years. Just struggled to get past New England in the postseason. Every team has that rival that they just can't find a way to get over. The Buffalo Bills are that for the Miami Dolphins right now, and it is the mark of a good coach to find a way to get past that. Which is why, and talking about, that's the Josh Allen component. I'll talk about Sean McDermott. There's a lot of discussion about whether or not the team should retain Sean McDermott or not. And man, I got to tell you, I've been of two ways on this. I like Sean McDermott. I think he's a great coach. Obviously, he has done a phenomenal job with a lot of the talent on the defensive side of the ball. I was expecting the defense to fall off a cliff after he announced that he was going to be taking over play calling duties and not having a defensive coordinator. Usually that doesn't tend to work out super well. Turned out to work out very well the entirety of the season for the most part. Would have worked out better if we hadn't had the smorgasbord of injuries on the defensive side of the ball. But all things considered, that worked out really well. Managing the offensive side of the ball, from everything I've read, it sounds like Sean McDermott is relatively hands-off on the offense. I'm not saying he doesn't have anything to do with it, but I think he lets his offensive guys figure that out. I think he lets his coordinators handle that, and he just kind of focuses on defense and then just kind of gives a vague thumbs up or a thumbs down to Dorsey or Brady, from my understanding. So, and that's probably the best way to do it, honestly. I don't want the defensive-minded head coach to start meddling with what the offense needs to be doing. So, and I think that probably reflects in, there's a lot that gets kind of insinuated about Josh Allen's interactions with Sean McDermott on the sideline. Like, people think that they have like a cold relationship, or they're not, you don't see them like embracing the way that you might see a franchise quarterback and their head coach embrace after a big win or something like that. And I don't think that's because there isn't any like love or respect there. I think it's really just because Sean McDermott leaves the offense to the offense, and like, I think that that Allen probably has a closer vibe and relationship to his coordinators, who are always in the booth. Dable was in the booth, Dorsey was in the booth, and Brady is in the booth. Those guys aren't on the sidelines. So I just think that's kind of what that is when you see that. But I think that McDermott, there's a question whether he's the guy that's going to get us over this hump. And a lot of people want to ditch him in favor of trying to bring in a Jim Harbaugh, who I like, and I think would very likely be the upgrade that we would need to get over the hump, or Bill Belichick, which I'm agnostic to. I think if he has a great quarterback and can focus on the defense, then he's probably the upgrade too. I mean, it's hard to say he's not, given his pedigree. I just don't know to what level he might be washed. He's been doing it for a long time, and he's kind of up there in age. I just don't know if he's at the end of the road on how much juice he has left. But if he has any, then he probably would be a capable upgrade too. I don't know if I'm ready to give up on Sean McDermott though. I think that a lot of the issues that we've had this year come from offense, and a lot of that has to do with how Brandon Beane has managed the roster on that side of the ball. I know that him and McDermott work in tandem. They're in lockstep, so he's not completely clean of his involvement in that too. But going into the offseason, everybody knew that wide receiver was a need. Everybody knew that we needed to get Josh weapons, and to their credit, they brought in Kincaid. They brought in Dalton Kincaid, who looks like a stud. He looks like he's going to be awesome. This is his rookie year, and he was contributing in a major way. So I'm excited to see what he looks like. Another year into what I was going to say another year into this system, but I don't even know what this system's going to end up looking like come next year. And that'll be another discussion, post McDermott discussion. I think McDermott probably has shown enough to warrant some level of faith. Like, I feel like this is this team's first big test. This is this front office's first big test, because up until this point, they put together the defense. They knew what they wanted to do. They signed Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, and they drafted Trey White. They built all around those dudes, and they did it awesomely. They got a lot of great depth, incredible depth, really, especially on the defensive line. And they built that defense in such a way that once we got our quarterback, we allowed him to make his mistakes in his rookie year, etc. And then he grew into the role by the time 2019 came around. And I can't remember. I think we got Diggs in 20. Did we get Diggs in 2019? I think we got him in 2020. You know, Josh Allen was getting production out of dudes like Cole Beasley and John Brown. So the skill was there. The potential was evident. And with a defense as stout as the defense that, and it had its issues. Leslie Dermott was a little bit too bend, don't break for my taste. He wasn't as eager to blitz as Sean McDermott has shown to be once he took over. But Leslie Frazier did a pretty good job too. That defense allowed Josh Allen to grow into his own, so I'll credit him for that too. I think that this is the first big test of this front office because we've reached a point where now we have to pivot. I think we have some of our key defenders are a little bit long in the tooth. We have a fucking smorgasbord of players who are hitting the free agency this year, including Gabe Davis, who I am not entirely. If I was betting man, I would say he's out of Buffalo. And I know a lot of Bills fans are like, bye, don't let the door hit you. See you later, buddy. But after that Chiefs game, I think, and a lot of people were like, Gabe Davis was missing this game. I think that's true. I think that's true. Like, Gabe Davis disappears periodically in the regular season. He'll pop up every now and then with big plays, but I think he shows up to these postseason games. He's a big component to them. Like, he's a major component. He's a big playmaker. He has steadier hands in these do or die moments in the postseason. And, you know, if Diggs isn't going to catch anything down the field, who do you think I want Josh Allen to turn to? Trent Sherfield or Gabe Davis? You know, like Gabe Davis, 10 out of 10. But without him on that field, he didn't have that option. So, you know, and I think that Davis, unfortunately, hasn't shown enough consistency to warrant like the kind of contract he's going to want to stick around. So I think Davis is going to be gone. And a lot of other people too. And we are in cap space hell. I think we're 40 billion over the cap. So we've got a lot of contract renegotiations to do. Fixing some contracts for guys who are willing to fix them to stick around. A lot of people that are going to just unfortunately be shown their walking papers. People who I think, you know, probably should be traded. I think we should trade a lot of people for draft picks. Not necessarily even high ones, just picks that we can use come draft day to trade up. This is a deep draft for just about every position that's not quarterback, especially wide receiver. And I want to have a bevy of draft picks so that we can move up, you know, should we decide to. I think we need to entertain trading some guys who we may not necessarily want to trade or feel like we would like to trade. I don't know what we'd be able to get for him, but I think I put Trey White on that list. Guy's barely been able to play in a couple years, and I love Trey White. He's awesome. Like, when he's healthy and running at full blast, he's an elite corner. But, you know, he hasn't been that healthy in 2 years. What can we get for him? Like, he's also kind of becoming one of those long in the tooth, not quite like Hyde and Poyer. Hyde and Poyer were in the league for multiple years before White was drafted, but White still has some gas in the tank at his age. So what can we get for him? And I feel more comfortable saying this after seeing what Sean McDermott was able to do with Rasul Douglas, Teron Johnson, Dane Jackson, Christian Benford. I think that being able to get really good corner play from those guys puts us in a better position too if we get those picks. We have 10 already, but fuck it, let's get as many as we can. Let's draft a lot of really great young corners that we can have on cheap rookie contracts and get McDermott to get awesome production out of those guys too. Like, I think this is going to be I don't want to use the word rebuild, but it kind of is. It's a pivot. It's like what New England used to do periodically, like when they decided to move away from an offense that was built around Randy Moss and Wes Welker and Julian Edelman, and was like, we're going to focus more. Well, I guess Edelman was part of it, but we're going to focus more on we're going to draft Aaron Hernandez and Rob Gronkowski and do more of like the multiple tight end sets and stuff. And that first year, I remember how rough they looked offensively when they were getting their feet underneath them for running that offense. And people were saying up and down the board, oh, this is the end of New England's dynasty. This is it. Like, this is it for Brady and Belichick. And it's kind of silly to think about that now in retrospect. I mean, they went on to win several more after that, but several more Super Bowls after that. But they had that moment where they shifted their offense and they had their growing pains, but they were able to win a couple more after that because of that. They didn't stand still. They didn't have this idea of, well, we could just bring back all the old guys and, we'll figure it out with the contract, but we can run it back. We can run it. But no, there is no running it back after a certain point. We had a window with this particular group. The window, I think, has closed with this particular group. It isn't closed in total. Like, so long as Josh Allen is on this team, the window's not closed. But we are at a pivot point where I think we need to figure out what our offensive identity is going to be going forward. I don't think we can. We tried to build it around Stephon Diggs. Well, kind of. I mean, we didn't get any real number 2 receiver to pair with him, but we got Diggs at least, and that wasn't enough. And at this point, I don't know. I mean, we might want to consider trading Diggs too, because if he's gonna perform like that, like he did for the second half of this season, plus what he did in Kansas City, I don't think he's worth keeping around. I don't know if we can get anything for him, anything valuable. But again, I'm okay with just getting if we can get like a 5th round pick for him, fucking do it. Let's get as many picks as possible. All the picks. I want all the picks. I want to go into the 2024 draft with like 22 picks, and let's trade up and get awesome wide receivers in the first or second. Let's get some awesome fucking linebackers. Let's get some more corners. Let's do this. Let's do a 1-year rebuild. Let's not rebuild this thing out in 2024, 2025, 2026. Let's get a big free agent contract that's going to bloat everything. And no, let's not do that. Let's do a 1-year rebuild. We fucking fire sell our valuable vets for as much as we can get. Bring in as much good young talent as possible, and try to flip this thing around as quickly as possible. Because Josh Allen's going to be 28 this year, so let's go. let's hit the pedal on this one. That's what I think we should do. I don't think we should focus on if we do what I want us to do, then I think we could free up a good amount of cap space. And we might be able to have a good free agent signing. I want T. Higgins. I want to go after T. Higgins, honestly. I think if we had T. Higgins and some awesome rookie wide receivers, early round wide receivers, not 5th or 6th rounders, like 1st and 2nd rounders, we had some awesome wide receivers with T. Higgins and Dalton Kincaid, and, I don't know if I want to keep Dawson Knox. I actually like Morris too. I think we could probably keep Morris for cheaper. But, if we decide to keep Knox too, fine. I'm not disappointed with that. I just think he has value. Wherever we have value, I think we should get trade value. But I think Kincaid going forward with, an awesome core of young receivers led by T. Higgins, I think that's a huge boost to the offense. I think if we rebuild our defense with a lot of young studs, and some crafty vets, like we have been signing veteran defenders all year, signing and bringing them up off of the couches and other teams' practice squads, and really finding some really good contributors. And I think we could keep that going too. I don't know about our defensive line. Our D-line has been awesome all year, but they just completely evaporated against Kansas City. I guess maybe, I don't know. I really don't know. I guess maybe that's a part of the whole 3 tight end thing, but for whatever reason, they just weren't there for Kansas City. I don't. If it was easy to get out of Von Miller's contract, I say do it. If he ends up getting suspended, that's a much easier conversation. He has no trade value at this point, so I don't think he does, at least. So we're kind of stuck with that albatross for now. That was also another old all-in decision by Brandon Beane that just didn't pay off. I don't like doing that with free agents like that, because for whatever reason it just rarely ever pays off. But I don't know. I have to think about what to do about the D line though. But I think Micah Hyde's probably done, which is a shame because he's been one of the most consistently elite players on our defense throughout this entire run. I don't know about Jordan Poyer, but we probably have some guys on. We could probably have some guys that we could move to safety from corner. I don't know. I'd like to experiment with that, maybe with Christian Benford or even Kyer Elam. But we've got some decent corner depth there, here and there. Taylor Rapp. We could draft some corners too, but I also think we could probably find some free agent corners that aren't going to cost too much if we can get out of a lot of the contracts that we have on deck. Either reconfigure these contracts or outright trade the players away and let the other teams pick up those contracts, whatever it may be. I think that this team is best positioned right now. Our best bet going forward is to accept the fact that the first window closed. The 2018 window in which or I guess maybe it's the 2017 window where Sean McDermott was hired, and we had Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Trey White brought in, and Tyrod Taylor broke the playoff drought, and we lost to the Jags. But we at least broke the drought. We realized, hey, this McDermott guy, he might be legit, awesome. We might finally be out of the wilderness, and et cetera, et cetera. We drafted a controversial quarterback, had a pretty rough rookie outing with him after he got injured. We got Derek Anderson and all that, Matt Barkley. But our defense looked good. We had some good contributors there. I think we had Tremaine Edmonds at the time brought in, and we were looking good still, and then it just went up and up and up from there, with the defense still built around Trey White and the safety tandem and all of that. But that window's closed now. Trey White, he might be, who knows if he's even going to be a shell of his former self. That's why I'm not entirely for certain what trade value he has at this moment, but whatever it might be, I get it. And, Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, they might be washed at this time, just due to age. And, Matt Milano he's still good. I'm sure he's still fine once he'll come back from his injury. And, we've got some good linebackers to go with him for now. The depth is a little concerning, but, that's part of what we need to address in the draft and potentially on the back end of free agency. But defensive line, Ed Oliver's dope. And Daquan Jones is also dope. He's probably going to require a very large contract. Are we going to be willing to give him a large contract? I don't know. Jordan Phillips, probably not. Linval Johnson, I think his name is, probably not. I mean, if he wants a modest contract, it's possible, but we've been getting good production out of a lot of guys on the defensive line too. That's where Daquan Jones and Linval Johnson came from. Just like, who the fuck are these guys kind of players that come in and pop off. Unfortunately, we're devoting a lot of money to Von Miller. I think Leonard Floyd is a free agent, but I don't know if we're going to want to pay him to come back, pay him the kind of money he's going to want to come back. So, we're going to have to do a lot of retooling on the line, too. This is going to be a year where we need to just accept the fact that the window has closed for that first team. The window has closed in the first phase. I guess if we want to look at it as the Buffalo Bills cinematic universe, phase 1 has completed. The window is closed on phase 1. We are now moving into phase 2, and the sooner we recognize that The sooner we recognize that this draft, being as deep as it is in virtually every position but quarterback, the one position we don't have a pressing need at, the sooner we recognize that, the sooner we can put ourselves in a position to hit the ground running in phase 2, because phase 2 is fucking terrifying, guys. We're in a real position to be leapfrogged by the Texans with DeMeco Ryan and CJ Stroud. They could leapfrog us. I see that happening very easily, if they have a good draft and free agency period this year. You've got, if we're sticking with the AFC, we don't know what Anthony Richardson's going to look like yet in Indy. So he's still a question mark. He was looking pretty damn good starting off. And Shane Steichen is a good coach. So there's no reason to believe that he isn't going to, show up being a threat to the conference. If Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick end up in LA for the Chargers, then that puts Justin Herbert back on the map. For years, people have been talking about Justin Herbert in the same breath as Mahomes and Allen and whatnot. And it feels almost like it's a courtesy to Herbert to do that. Like, oh, come on, buck up, champ. You're the same as these guys. But it definitely hasn't. If it's shown on the stat lines for him in the box score, it hasn't shown in the win-loss ratio. So, and maybe that's a fault of their defense. But whatever the case may be, if they have a competent coach in LA for the Chargers, then Herbert's back on the map, and he becomes an issue in the conference. The entire NFC North they're all killers. Even the Browns, I don't know about Deshaun Watson. Maybe he still has that energy in him. People were popping off about Joe Flacco, but come on, Joe Flacco is Joe Flacco. And I love Joe Flacco, and I was happy for him, and I wanted him to succeed. But he has his limitations. In general, even in his prime, he had his limitations that I think Deshaun Watson blows past. We just need to see what Deshaun Watson can do with the full season. And then, of course, the other teams, they speak for themselves. Joe Burrow is going to come back. Unfortunately, for anyone that has to play that team, Joe Burrow is going to come back. And, the Ravens are the Ravens. They look like world beaters this year. They're probably, I would put my money on them going to and winning the Super Bowl. And, the weakest team in that division right now are the Steelers. And who knows what they end up doing. They still got into the postseason, so kudos to them for that. I guess maybe if the Bengals hadn't lost Burrow, they would have been the one in the postseason. But that's still every NFC or every AFC North team being a playoff caliber team. 3 of them having made it. Maybe in some weird world, there's a configuration that would see all 4 teams in the AFC North. I keep saying NFC. All 4 teams in the AFC North in the postseason. So that's a killer of a division, and I don't see any backslides happening there. I think that if the Steelers realize that Kenny Pickett sucks and they need a better quarterback, that's an automatic upgrade for them. So we'll see what happens there. AFC East, we don't know what the Jets are going to look like with Aaron Rodgers. We don't. And is Aaron Rodgers washed, or does he still have some of that old energy in him? If he does, then that's a terrifying team, because Robert Saleh's defense looked incredible all year. Best defense in the league. And if they had halfway decent quarterback play, then they probably would have been, in Miami's position. They probably would. I could see that team beating Miami twice, and maybe even beating. They already beat us once with Zach Wilson. They opened the season with that. So I can't. It would if Aaron Rodgers has any Hall of Fame ability left in him, that's a terrifying team. And the Dolphins, we'll have to see how they rebound. They can pop off at any given moment on offense, but I don't know. I don't know what they're going to have to. They need to overhaul. They need to overhaul on defense more than anything else. I think Tua is kind of a weak quarterback, but they're not. They're dedicated to him. They've already said they're not moving away from him. So they need somebody to stiffen up their defense if they want to have a better shot. And it's not like they didn't have a shot. They were playing for the division at the end of the year, and they squeaked into the postseason and got handled by the team that beat us. So, they obviously are still a threat. We just need to see if they are on an upward trajectory or a downward trajectory. I don't know. And for the West, I mean, you have Mahomes. Again, you have you have Chargers with Herbert and maybe a new coach. I don't know what Denver's going to do. Sean Payton kind of bugs me, and the way he disrespected Russell Wilson kind of rubs me the wrong way. Maybe they have a plan at quarterback. I don't know. We'll have to see. And then the Raiders, I like Antonio Pierce. I think that's a great hiring. Is he going to stick with Aiden O'Connell? Doubt it. So we'll have to see what they do at quarterback too. Two massive question marks there. Could go either way. Teams go worst to first all the time, though. That's what we're looking at in the AFC. And if Buffalo isn't on top of it, if Buffalo isn't on top of realizing that the window has closed for the first group and the time to open the window for the second group is now, and we need to be aggressive and doing an immediate rebuild, then we're going to get left behind. We're going to get left behind. The Jets are going to take our spot, or the Texans, or maybe Jim Harbaugh Chargers. I mean, it could be any one of these teams. It could be, I mean, I don't really like Trevor Lawrence that much, but he pops off every now and then too. You don't know what Doug Peterson is capable of down there. Every now and then they field a team that looks like they're just as good as any other perennial playoff team. And they're in a division that has shown weakness and has some question marks. Again, we don't know about Anthony Richardson. It's such a, I mean, the conference is tough. This is a tough conference. And, a part of that has been because of the Buffalo Bills in this first window. We've contributed to the toughness of the conference. But we're at a point now where we can't rely on running it back with the same old guys. We need to make, if we have an intention of establishing long-term success, we need to come to terms that chapter is done. Sorry, we're gonna have to say bye to a lot of fan favorite players, maybe not a fan favorite, but people that we like. Gonna have to say bye to a good deal of them, and we're gonna have to make a move on offensive coordinator. Like, a lot of people like Joe Brady and want him to stick around. I don't know how I feel about that. I want us to go through a thorough interviewing process for the OC. If we end up on Brady, then sure. Okay, fine. But I want an offensive coordinator that isn't afraid of throwing the ball. I know that running the ball has its place. We used it to control, for the moment, or for the most part, the Chiefs' offense in that game. And that's what kept us in the game. Like, I'm not discounting that. That's what kept us in the game. But I don't want to go to an offense that's going to be super run heavy. Like, we need to pass the ball. We need to get better at passing the ball. We need to get more consistent at passing the ball. And it's hard to get consistent at passing when you don't pass it a lot. Brian Dable, is kind of the opposite of what we've seen this year. When he was our offensive coordinator, like, he almost had a sexual fetish for passing the ball. And we would run it, and we would see some success with running it, and then we would immediately abandon it for passing. But we got far. We had a lot of really great games that way. And Leslie Frazier ran a softer, less aggressive defense than Sean McDermott ran. If Sean McDermott had been running the defense in those years, then maybe 13 seconds doesn't happen. I don't know. Maybe a lot of those other faults that our failings that the defense had in light of incredible Josh Allen performances, maybe they don't happen. So we need to figure out, and I guess I've been ranting for a while here, but at the end of all of this, what we are faced with is potentially an entire massive sea change for the Buffalo Bills organization. We may be talking about a new offensive coordinator. We may be talking about bringing in a defensive coordinator. We should definitely fire our special teams coordinator, because our special teams has not been good for the duration of the time this dude's been around. We definitely need better special teams play. So I would definitely find a new special teams coordinator. We may be talking about turning over damn near half the roster, getting rid of a lot of contracts, the ones that we can't come to terms and negotiating more team-friendly contracts for guys we do want to have stick around. But there may be a lot of guys we don't want to have stick around due to age or whatever else. We're talking about getting a bunch of picks and getting a lot younger, a lot faster, and introducing our once-in-a-generation franchise quarterback to potentially a whole new system, a whole new offensive system. Maybe not whole new. There'll probably be some concepts we bring over, but we're in a position where we can't reliably run it back with what we've been doing in the first phase, in the Buffalo Cinematic Universe Phase 1. Window's closed. Time for the new window to open. It's time to make bold moves. It's water I'm drinking, not... If you're thinking... this guy has insane ideas. Oh, wait, I hear ice in a glass. He's drunk as shit. That's why. No, it's water. My throat's dry. All right, that's all I had. I was just really annoyed at a lot of the discussions over Josh Allen being Phillip Rivers and should we fire Sean McDermott, which I guess maybe I didn't actually come to my ultimate conclusion on that. If... I guess Jim Harbaugh is like, I really want to coach the Buffalo Bills, then sure, fire McDermott. Okay, fine. If not, keep him. I'm perfectly content with McDermott and his ability to build a team with Bean, his ability to coach up talent. I think he's probably one of the best in the league in that regard. We just need to actually support our quarterback with true, legitimate, consistent offensive talent. That's what I want to see. Get those picks. Trade up where you need to. Draft some first or second round wide receivers and cornerbacks. All right, I felt good to get that out. That loss was a pain in the ass, but I'm closing the window on that phase of the Buffalo Bills era. I'm ready to go into the new phase. God damn, my throat's dry from talking so much. In conclusion, I am ready to close the window on that first phase of the Buffalo Bills Cinematic Universe, Phase 1. Open the window to the Buffalo Bills Cinematic Universe, Phase 2. Whole new, well, not entirely, but mostly new crew. Also, a pass-happy offensive coordinator who knows how to use the run when it's necessary. A running back room that doesn't just rely on James Cook's ability to bounce around. Maybe get somebody that can actually run through some tackles for some tough yards. Get a bunch of fire-ass wide receivers, hopefully led by T. Higgins. Rebuild the defense with a lot of young, talented players, be they draft or off of free agency, and get ready to show the league a new look Bills. Prove to everyone that we can win double-digit winning seasons in more than just one way, and more than just Josh Allen being a Buffalo himself and charging through people. Although I still want to see that too. So. Here's to 2024. The offseason officially begins for us Bills fans. Good luck, everyone.